We come to the Honorable Justice Ali Baqar Najafi of the Lahore High Court. And, Nigat's points intervention were a good segue to the next, section. And I would just like to recall a few judgments in the past few years. We've had Justice Mansoor Ali Shah at the Supreme Court, who in one of the cases said that a woman's character cannot be questioned in a case of harassment, right, or of rape. And I think that's a wonderful precedent for the courts to follow. And in the Lahore High Court itself, we've had the Justice Aisha Malik's case in which the two-finger test was deemed illegal and scrapped from practices in rape cases in which, the rape victims or survivors were being re-traumatized by checking their character, which was an ancient old, practice that had to be done away with. So there has been some movement, but, of course, at the same time, I think especially with the proliferation of technology, we're seeing a lot more evidence being recorded of cases, and we're seeing a lot more people speaking up. So I think the critical mass of such cases, I wouldn't call it critical yet, but people are reporting more and more cases, and there is a lot of burden on the courts. Now it's up to the courts also now how do they deal with this. There has been talk about gender courts, and I think recently in the new law, they're also setting up special courts for trying cases related to rape. But my question really, Honorable Justice, would be, what are some steps that the judiciary can take to make the courts more welcoming space for women who have been suffering to approach the courts and to be able to come and say, this is what happened with me, and be confident that they will get justice?
Thank you very much, Mr. Osama. It's a great pleasure to be here in this very distinguished panel on a very sensitive topic of discussion. Let me congratulate the organizers of this conference of Asma Jahangir Foundation. It's, I think, the third conference, and it's so far a great success. The best part of this conference is that you come across with people of divergent ideas, and then you have a chance to listen to them, and then, of course, go to the very sensitive areas where we normally don't talk about. Now, a lot of things have been said by our friend participant from India, His Highness from Netherlands, and the ombudsperson and the Nigat, the advocate. Well, I'll pick up the point from the Nigat where you have left. We have pointed out that, in fact, because especially my area of dispensation of justice, you are right that there has to be a different approach for a victim by the judges and by lawyers. There's no doubt about that. But let me put it this way: let us admit this fact that we are a patriarchal society. In the society, in the rural background particularly, these rights of women, this concept of sexual harassment, gender-based violence, this is not been acknowledged there. And because of the movement like Asma Jahangir Foundation and other, because throughout her life he has been portraying and has been struggling for these women's rights, and other movements also, other NGOs have been working on this area. At this point of time, at least we have defined something. We have law in place. And we are open to discussion, because if there's some incident of violence, this sort of a violence, the victim has a chance, because he has been hearing in the media and he has been hearing the social media, that if there's a situation, he can file a complaint, as you pointed out, on the cybercrime area. Now, this is an improvement. 10 years ago, or maybe 7, 8 years ago, this was not the idea at all. Whereas in the world at large, in the other part of the world, this was accepted as a fact. This is an achievement, I would say. Now, but this is not enough. We have to go far away. Every member of our society, the legal community, the social other communities, and the social media, and these people will have to join together, because it is not to be controlled by one part of our society. We have to accept this fact that this gender-based violence is not good for our society. It has to be curbed. And how? There are many ways. Uh, for us, for particularly for courts, I think your question is very important, and I would like to answer in this way that we should train the judges who are dealing with this kind of cases. We should train the lawyers who are dealing with these kind of cases, and we should provide an atmosphere in the courtroom in which the victim is free to narrate his story, and freely, without any pressure, without any, one way of doing that is that if you are, if a witness is narrating something in front of the perpetrator, perhaps it will be difficult for the victim to narrate the whole story. So it can be, there could be a scene, that person can be away from the, or he can see the victim but should not be physically there. Other things is that you have to, I would say that this is high time that we should categorize number of cases, the type of cases. Some cases should be put in fast track. Some cases should be put in a way that the timeline must be fixed for those cases. I mean, this is for us to do, but I'm trying to share it with you, believing that there are lawyers here in the hall, and if we can, curtail the time span which is spent for the conclusion of such type of cases, if it can be reduced, that can encourage the victims and the survivors to come forward and file their complaint in the court. Well, talking for our system, I have always, observed a policy in my courtroom that whenever such type of cases are brought in, my first question to the lawyer, to the prosecution, to the other side, is that, from the accused side, is that, what do you think would be the reason to raise this kind of a serious allegation in our society, in which it takes the stakes are very high for a woman to level this kind of allegation, think the consequences of it. So first satisfy me that why this offense was reported, if there was no substance in it. And then secondly, we try to, avoid these kind of questions which will put the victim into embarrassing situation. I mean, it depends from judges. That's why I'm saying that if the judges are trained properly, then they will be able to understand the consequences of the questions. And of course, then we will have to, see the way the matter is being reported in the media, because, media catches things which do sensitize, which create sensation in the society. So that aspect has to be discouraged, I think. But at the same time, what I think is that we have to follow very robust policy, right from our own homes, in our families, in our communities, in our cities, in our colleges, wherever we are working. Unless we accept it as a fact inside us. I mean, if we don't practice at home, how can we convince the others that you should not do that? Because the honesty is, I think, what is required. If we honestly believe in something, then only then it will have a compact, real impact of the solution and answer to those questions. I think now we should also try to understand the different type of gender issues, because heretofore we have not been able to understand what was the forced impregnation. These are the new categories: forced impregnation, marital rape, and forced marriages has been quite some time we've come across, and inheritance question. These are different type of harassments. If a woman is being deprived of his inheritance right, it's wrong. It's depriving his right. And if the male family members, they come to physical beating her or doing physical violence not to claim that right, that is also gender-based violence. And unfortunately, in many societies, particularly in rural areas, this is justified. That's why our purpose is to make sure that we don't provide the justification of this violence. The justification can be on the religious basis, Aurat naqatul asar hai. I mean, she can't understand things properly. At times she doesn't understand things. Usko ilm nahi hai, she is uneducated, she is not aware of her rights. So this approach has to be changed. And I think, as I said, that it is not only one type of persons who are responsible to improve it. It is as a whole society will have to join together and to make the better place for our future generations. Thank you. In many cases, there is a motive behind such complaints. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the truth comes out that this is the reason why this victim was implanted or, false allegation. That's right. But it has to come through a process of law. I mean, some complaint has to go to the court, and then, of course, the cross-examination is pointed out. That's digging out the truth through the questioning of the victim. That is essential. But of course, I agree that for this purpose, there has to be, properly trained judges should be there, because they should know where the red line, where the red line is not to be crossed. It's not an ordinary case. It's not an ordinary trial. I agree with you, because that is the requirement. What not to be asked, and what to be asked. Yes, that's right. And secondly, I think you said mindset is very important. Mindset is very important.
Here is the rules and regulations of the Honorable High Court that the question of character assassination would not be put to the person.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Without the prior permission of the person.
That's right. That's right. You pointed out the mindset of the people. I think you're right, because this is the time. And how can we improve the mindset? Because of the religious nature of our society, I think the religious clergymen should also be involved, because they have a lot of influence on our society. They should be persuaded. They should be, there's a religious background of it. I mean, all good religions have, what we are saying is not saying something which is deplored by any particular religion. It is approved in all religions, because women have been respected in all religions. And as we claim that in Islam it is respected higher than any other religion, though the practices, not to the level which it should have been. So I think to change the mindset, the religious clergymen and the influential people in the society, the elderly person should be involved. They should be sensitized and they should be persuaded, I think.